Good morning again, Facebook. Good morning again, YouTube. YouTube. I'm about to say Facebook because, I do a show on Facebook too. So, Facebook almost came out, but good morning again, YouTube. Good morning again. Good morning. What's going on, people? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, I got a lot of things going on. Got house inspection and all that shit going on. What's up, G Chill? What's going on, bro? Yeah, I got good content, to carry on for what I did this morning. Um, what I brought you guys this morning was the story of basically Jeff Ford, the leader of the El Rookin gang that's in Chicago. I played the rise and fall of Jeff Ford. But what I'm going to play for you guys today is to show how the gang was formed, and it also explains the division that was caused, between Jeff Fort and Larry Hoover. Because, like I mentioned before, a lot of the gangs had divided to different fractions. It's just not like Ace Disciples or L Rookers or P-Stone no more. You got different fractions now. And why did them fractions happen? It could be a lot of reasons. But this explains a lot of what how the gang situation happened here in Chicago, and it also shows that gang members have help from higher places. Like people ask you, where do these people get all these weapons? Listen to this, and you will soon see what's happening. So, further ado, y'all, let's get into this. This from Hood Archives and the Escape Code. It's the name of it is the Deadly War that divided Chicago into two nations. That's what this is. So that was a commercial. Sorry, people. But here, let's go with the video. Let's start with the video. Then once we're done with the video, it's not that long. But once we finish the video, we can have a discussion. All right? So let's go. Let's go with the video.
Two boys, both born in Mississippi, both black, both poor, both headed to the same city, the same South Side, the same streets, on a collision course.
Thank you, Moonlight. Thanks for coming through.
Jeff Fort, born February 20th, 1947, in Aberdeen, Mississippi. Larry Hoover, born November 30th, 1950, in Jackson, Mississippi. Fort's family lands in the Woodlawn neighborhood in 1955. Hoover's family rolls into Englewood when the boy is barely 4 years old. Neither family had much. Neither neighborhood had much either. What those streets did have was war. All right, y'all. Now let me keep it real with you for a second. I spent like 3 straight hours digging into Jeff Fort's early years, and what I found, man, it honestly surprised me. Because the story everybody thinks they know, the gangster, the terrorist, dude locked up in Supermax for life, that story don't start where you'd expect. It starts with a kid who was so good at calming people down, settling arguments, bringing folks together, that people around him had a nickname for him. They called him Angel. Angel Jeff Fort, the same man who would later negotiate a terrorism deal with Muammar Gaddafi. They called him Angel. By the time he's 18 years old, Fort has done something almost nobody in Chicago gang history had ever managed. Separate street gangs, each other, and folded them into a single federation. He called the governing body the Main 21, 5,000 members answering to one structure on the south side of Chicago in the 1960s. That is not a street gang, that is an organization. Meanwhile, in Inglewood, Larry Hoover is 13 years old when his gang's leader gets murdered. He doesn't run, he steps up. By age 15, he has grown the Supreme Gangsters to over 1,000 members, 15 years old. Then came the money. And this, personally, I think this is the most underrated part of the entire story. This is where the government handed the keys to the kingdom to a gang, smiled, and called it a poverty program. 1967, Fort creates a nonprofit.
Now, I don't know. I don't know if you guys understood that. See, they was starting programs that was for the neighborhood, and they was being funded by the government. So everything they was doing, it was being funded by the government. So whatever, like per se food drive or whatever, you know, they was funded by the government. Now this was before the split. Now you got to remember, this is 1967, 69 when all this started. So we're gonna go year by year, step by step, and it's gonna tell you the different transgressions that went on that brought the division and separation of these gangs. Because remember, they was like together. So just continue listening. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Called the Grassroots Independent Voters of Illinois. He applies for a federal anti-poverty grant through the Office of Economic Opportunity. $927,000 approved. Gang members are put on the payroll as job training instructors. President Richard Nixon publicly praises the program. Ford is invited to Nixon's inauguration ball in January 1969. He doesn't go. Jeff Fort gets invited to the White House and says, no, let that land for a second. But behind the scenes, the program is hemorrhaging money. Eugene Hairston, Fort's co-leader and assistant project director of the program, gets convicted of paying teenage gang members $1 each and some cold cuts to commit murder.
Ain't that pay a person $1 each and a little food? That's what they'll pay them to unalive somebody. For somebody to accept that, you know, to do a crime of unaliving somebody for that price, they have to be poor. Because if a person has money or whatever, that's too cheap of a price, in my opinion. But you just offer somebody $1. Now they said it was kids, young kids, maybe young teenagers. But they would just offer them $1 a piece and some food. That's what they get paid for doing, unaliving somebody, for doing the gang job. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let's listen.
While running a federally funded Jobs Program. Senator John McClellan hauls Fort before his subcommittee. The very first question prepared for him, after all the congressional resources, all the investigators, all the federal scrutiny, the first question is, where do you live, Jeff? Fort refuses to answer. He refuses to answer every single question. Convicted of contempt of Congress, McClellan stands up and declares, it doesn't make sense, this squandering of taxpayers' money. And the White House, the same White House that praised the program, says nothing. Then comes January 1969. Fort and Hoover sit down to talk alliance. And for one brief moment, it looks like the two most powerful young gang leaders in Chicago history might unite. They don't. Fort refuses equal partnership. He wants the throne, not a table. A shooting breaks out near Hoover's home. By June 1969, it's over. Two kings, same city, same streets, irreconcilable. The war begins.
Just think if Larry Hoover and Jeff Fort would have combined forces. That's just like if any you guys saw the movie The Warriors. That's kind of how old boy was. Cyrus. He was trying to bring all the gangs together. And what Jeff Fort and Larry Hoover were trying to do, they were trying to join. Because, power in one. But, some people have different reasons for doing things. Larry Hoover wanted to move one way. Jeff Fort wanted to move the other way. So that's what brought the division from them two brothers. So it's a trip, man. Let's continue, man. This shit is interesting.
Fort collapsed in June 1969. Hoover didn't grieve it. He pivoted. That same month, he sits down with David Barksdale, King David, leader of the Black Disciples. They meet at St. Stephen's Parish House, 6455 South Peoria, Englewood, a church. And out of that church meeting comes the largest gang merger in Chicago history. Barksdale's 10,000 Black Disciples, Hoover's 5,000 Supreme Gangsters. To Disciple Nation. Barksdale takes the title King, Hoover takes Chairman. Then comes June 7th, 1970. Barksdale and Hoover are at a bar on West 69th Street in Englewood. A fragile truce is technically in effect between the Disciples and Fort's Black Pea Stones. Technically, a pea stone known on the street as Suitcase Charlie is also there that night. According to some accounts, he drops an M14 rifle and it fires on impact. Other sources call it a deliberate hit. Either way, the bullet tears into Barksdale's side and lodges near his kidneys. Hoover gets him into the car, drives hard to St. Bernard's Hospital, and stays with him. Doctors say Hoover saved his life, but the kidney damage is permanent, and a clock starts ticking on King David that nobody can stop. 1973. Hoover is 22 years old, and a drug dealer named William Young goes missing. Young, 19 years old, known on the street as Pookie, is accused of stealing from the gangster Disciples. On February 26th, Hoover orders Young's killing. Pookie Young is murdered. He was 19, a teenager. That detail tends to get buried under the scale of everything that follows. But William Young had a name, and he was somebody's son. September 21st, 1973. Hoover is arrested, convicted, sentenced to 150 to 200 years. Stateville Correctional Center. Prison doesn't stop Larry Hoover, it elevates him. By 1978, he effectively runs Stateville, not metaphorically, literally. He later tells people he found his blueprint reading a biography of Mayor Richard J. Daley. It showed you can make a transition from a street gang.
Now, Richard J. Daley, he was mayor of Chicago. And some of you guys probably from Chicago or know of Chicago, we had a father and son that was mayor. Richard J. Daley, he was mayor around the late, 60s. Probably up until his passing, he probably was mayor before then. But he was mayor of Chicago for a long time. Mayor Daley has a lot of pull. Well, he had a lot of pull in Chicago. So, yeah, it's a trip, man. Hold on, y'all. Yeah, I got people going in and out. Because like I said, I got the house inspectors here, so. Yeah, but it's a trip. Let's continue, y'all.
And the man is serving 150 years and taking notes on municipal governance. September 2nd, 1974. David Barksdale dies. Kidney failure. 4 years after that night on West 69th Street. He is 27 years old. Hoover, already locked in Stateville, inherits the throne of the entire Black gangster disciple nation.
Do you guys see that, how old these guys are, man? Some of these guys is like teenagers in their early 20s. Gang leaders. Not just in the gang, but they gang leaders. You know what I'm saying? You expect somebody older. But there's a lot of youngins out here with that pull and that power because they about that life. It's crazy. Let's continue.
Came from a prison cell. April 1978, Hoover organizes a work stoppage at Stateville over rotten food and brutal conditions. He gets rival gang leaders inside the prison to stand with him, then pitches something nobody had ever attempted, a formal two-coalition system. Every gang...
See, Larry Hoover always been, Larry Hoover, he kind of had the mindset of the Black Panther Party. You know what I'm saying? And, they both did, him and Jeff Fort, but they wanted to take things in a different direction. Because like what you might hear on here is that at first, before Jeff Fort was getting money from Libya, Larry Hoover was getting money from Libya. But see, when Jeff Fort was getting, not Jeff Fort, but Larry Hoover was getting money from Libya, he was getting it as a loan. Jeff Fort, was getting money for something totally different. They wanted to get explosive. They wanted to be like, inside terrorists per se. So they say. But still, Larry Hoover and Jeff Fort was on two different agendas. So let's continue.
In Chicago, aligned under one of two flags. November 11th, 1978, Folk Nation is born inside Stateville. Gangster Disciples, Black Disciples, Simon City Royals, 2-6, Spanish Cobras, Maniac Latin Disciples, Imperial Gangsters. The name Folks comes from the Simon City Royals, a white gang, which tells you everything about how wide Hoover was casting his net. Six-pointed Star of David, the pitchfork, the number 6. Fort watches from the outside. And in 1981, he answers. People Nation, El Rukins, Vice Lords, Latin Kings, Mickey Cobras, Four Corner Hustlers. 5-point Star, Crescent Moon, the number 5, mirror opposites, surgically designed to counter everything Hoover built. By the late 1980s, the two coalitions claim over 100,000 active members. Chicago doesn't have a gang problem anymore. It has two nations. The FBI recordings would come later, but when they did, they caught Hoover talking about the first time he ever saw Jeff Fort walk into a room. His exact words, you could hear a pin drop when he was walking in. I told myself I could have a mob like that. Rivals, architects, both of them building toward the same cliff.
Everything.
So you see, both of them had two different agendas. Both of them had two different agendas. So that's kind of what separated them. They both had two different agendas. So as you can see that Larry Hoover went to prison before Jeff Fort. Larry Hoover went to prison for unaliving someone. See, Jeff Fort went to prison for conspiracy to commit terrorist act by associating with Muammar Gaddafi. So they both got arrested for different things, but basically most of them got life in prison. Let's continue.
All right, real quick before we jump back in, I just want to say thank you. In the last video, I told you about my second channel, The Escape Code, and because of you guys, it already passed 100 subscribers. Seriously, that means a lot to me. I appreciate every single one of you.
So look, the Hood Archives, the Escape Code channel. Subscribe. If you want to learn about Chicago, subscribe to his channel.
Be on the screen right now. If you've been enjoying these crime documentaries, go hit subscribe over there and help me push it to the first 1,000 subscribers. That would honestly mean a lot. All right, now let's get back to the story.
What's up, KDC?
By the mid-1980s, the map of Chicago's South Side has been redrawn, not by city planners, not by politicians, by two men, one in a converted theater fortress, one in a minimum security prison that looks like a community college. Every corner, every alley, every...
Hey, KTC, I don't have no problem with TJ. I don't have no problem with nobody on here. I don't have no problem at all.
floor of every public housing tower, 5 or 6 people or folks. There is no neutral ground. 100,000 people, at minimum, living under flags drawn by Fort and Hoover, and neither king is free. That detail is what the two most powerful men in Chicago.
What's up, Kings Mill? No, KTC, the state didn't release him because the pardon that Larry Hoover got don't cover state. So he still had to serve that state prison time. Anyway it goes, he's gonna do life in prison. He's never getting out. So it don't matter. We know Jeff Ford is never getting out. So, it is what it is.
Because when the FBI finally got eyes inside Vienna Correctional Center, what they found was wild. Now I've been inside a prison once, doing a journalism piece, and even a regular medium security spot hits you the second you walk in. Heavy doors, concrete, that feeling in your chest like the place is pressing down on you. But Vienna, according to the investigators who saw it, the place didn't even feel like a prison. It felt like a campus. And Hoover, he wasn't just another inmate there. He was the landlord. FBI recordings document what daily life looked like for the chairman. $400 alligator boots, specially prepared food, not cafeteria trays, actual meals, bodyguards who held keys to every internal door in the facility except the one leading outside.
KTC, they trying to get him on, but I don't think they ever gonna release him though. I don't think they ever gonna release him. My thing of it is, even if they do let him out, he's not gonna be able to control these YNs that's out here gang banging out, because these YNs, man, they out of control. They're not going by no set rules or no law book or nothing like that. See, back in the day when Larry Hoover and Jeff Ford was running everything, they had bylaws. A lot of these YNs doing now, they wouldn't dare do back then because they'll get violated. So, they know what they're doing when they locked up them two brothers. Now, do I condone what they accused them of doing? No. But, that's, it's almost like, a pot calling the kettle black. Like you guys heard earlier, the program they was running, it was being funded by the government, as I said before. But see, if you look back on history, every leader that we got into, the United States got into with, was somehow on the United States payroll. Either the United States was giving them money for their country, or they was on the United States payroll. Because if you think about it, if you go back the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s with the Iraq and Iran war, who will we allies with? Who did we help? We helped Iraq against Iran. See, I don't think the United States ever been really cool with Iran. But just through other presidencies, nobody, I guess Iran wasn't a threat. But Iran always been a threat to the United States. And like I say, when they fought Iraq, Iraq was our allies. We helped Iraq defeat Iran. Then later on in the years, we decided, either the oil or, we was tired of this man. We get rid of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was president of Iraq. The same people that we helped against Iran. Go figure on that. Let's continue this video.
The man is serving 150 years and he is eating better than most of the correctional staff. His drug operation is generating $100 million a year in Illinois alone. 100 million from a prison cell. While Hoover is running a corporation, Fort is building towards something that has no precedent in American gang history, something that will permanently change how law enforcement categorizes street gangs, something that even now most people don't fully understand. Fort hears that Louis Farrakhan received $5 million from Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. The money had been a loan, a political gesture from one ideological ally to another. And Jeff Fort was sitting on his throne at 3947 South Drexel Boulevard, a converted theater his people called the Fort, decides he wants in. He doesn't ask for a loan, he offers services. March 11, 1986, El Ruca and members board a flight to Libya. They sit down with Libyan intelligence. The offer on the table, El Rucan will carry out terrorist attacks inside the United States in exchange for $2.5 million per year. Bombings, assassinations, domestic terror for hire from a Chicago street gang on behalf of a foreign government. The FBI is already watching. July 31st, 1986, undercover agents run a sting operation. El Rucan members purchase a military-grade rocket launcher for $1,800. Proof of capability, proof of intent. The FBI moves. Raids hit 3947 South Drexel. Inside the fort, 33 firearms, 3 hand grenades, enough evidence to end Jeff Fort's life as a free man permanently.
See, that's, as you guys know from our last video, that's how Jeff Fort got caught up. As you heard Larry Hoover, they was getting money for Gaddafi as a loan. But Jeff Fort had a different mindset. He had a different mindset. He had what you call that revolutionary mindset. So they kind of clashed in that way. That's where they clashed, because they both had different goals and different ideas on how to run their gang. One wanted to run it one way, another wanted to run it their way. So they clashed. Let's continue. Oh yeah, let's give big up to Hood Archives and the escape code for this video. Let's continue.
7. Ford is convicted of terrorism conspiracy. 80 years. He becomes the first American ever convicted of plotting terrorism for a foreign government. Added to his existing 13-year drug trafficking sentence and a 1988 murder conviction carrying 75 years, Jeff Fort now faces 168 years in federal prison. 168 years for a man who was once invited to the presidential inauguration. There is something almost Shakespearean about it. The fall so steep, so total.
Damn, 186 years. How can you live? You ain't gonna leave you live that damn long. You might as well just say you finna die in prison. Shit, that's damn it. Quadruple life. Man, that's a lot of years to be behind bars. Let's continue.
So specific. He didn't get brought down by a rival. He got brought down by envy, by hearing that Farrakhan got $5 million from Gaddafi and deciding he deserved the same. That particular detail, I personally think it's one of the most psychologically revealing moments in this entire story.
Greed. He saw one man was getting something, so he wanted it. So he wanted it. He wanted a piece of the action. He wanted a piece of the action. Now, if he was just stepped back and kept doing what he's supposed to have been doing instead of that greed hitting him. Because the guy just said Farrakhan got money from Muammar Gaddafi, Nation of Islam. But it was a loan, and it wasn't for terroristic things. But by somebody, wanting a piece of action, but had their own different agenda, they basically fucked the game up. But later on, as anybody else, you have to soon face the consequences.
The most dangerous man on the south side of Chicago, taken out not by bullets, but by jealousy. Fort disappears into federal maximum security custody. 8 years later, when ADX Florence opens in 1995, the Alcatraz of the Rockies, he is among its first it happened. The tapes would later catch him talking about Fort with something that sounds almost like reverence, about seeing him walk into a room in the 60s, about the silence that followed him everywhere. 2 kings, one just fell, the other one moves like nobody can touch him. Fort is gone, buried in federal concrete, and Hoover, watching from Vienna, decides to try something nobody has ever attempted. He is going to rebrand a $100 million drug empire as a civil rights movement. And for a moment, it almost works. But first, the empire fractures from within. 1989. Hoover starts pulling the gangster disciples away from the broader folk nation, consolidating power, cutting off the branch to feed the trunk.
Now we're about to see how the gang's divided.
The Black disciples feel it immediately. 2 decades of shared identity, shared symbols, shared blood, and Hoover is done sharing. By 1991, Black disciple leader Mickey Bull Johnson is dead, killed in a GD-linked shooting. By 1993, the Black gangster disciple nation, the alliance born in that Englewood church, cemented the night Hoover carried Barksdale bleeding to St. Bernard's Hospital, is finished. Gangster disciples and Black disciples are now enemies. Hoover dismantled his own coalition.
Let's see. Remember I told you guys before how disciples had divided into different fractions? How they divided into different fractions? This explains it. Larry Hoover divided, made different fractions of the disciples. That's why you had like Black disciples, Black gangster disciples. You had different fractions. And that's when it started. Let's continue.
Chasing soul control. The king ate his own kingdom, but the public never sees any of that. What the public sees is the rebranding. Hoover renames the gangster disciples. They are now growth and development. He builds businesses, Ghetto Prisoner Clothing, Incorporated, a music promotion company. Then he creates 21st Century VOTE, Voices of Total Empowerment, a political action committee. On paper, on the street, the internal code is still the duck. Nothing will hurt the duck but his bill. You do not discuss gang business, ever. Anyone who talks risks death. The politics are window dressing. The operation underneath never stops. May 1993, 5,000 people march on Chicago City Hall over healthcare cuts, organized by 21st Century Vote. It looks like a community movement. It is a community movement funded entirely by cocaine. August 1993, Hoover applies for parole, and here is where Chicago's political class loses its mind completely. Former Mayor Eugene Sawyer endorses him publicly, calls him a peacemaker. Chicago aldermen make the trip to Joliet Prison to personally vouch for the man. Illinois Attorney General Roland Burris, the state's top law enforcement officer, claims neutrality. The Chicago Tribune editorial board erupts. How can political leaders take up his cause?
That's why they say Chicago politicians and Illinois politicians are crooked. See? So how can you now, all this time you've been funding the gangs, people wonder, how do these gangs get this money? How do these gangs get away with doing what they doing? The people that you have in government, people you have in the police force, you know, you got some bad ones in there. You got the police that protect them, and you got the government that finance them. And the only time you get caught or whatever is as if when they done with you or you do something you're not supposed to do. That's when they find something to arrest you. It's almost like that P. Diddy thing. Pause. You know, you get evidence on you, but as soon as you defame or, you know, fuck up or whatever, here come the evidence. Almost the same thing. That's how they roll. Let's continue.
The answer is not admiration, it is fear. When a gang runs 30,000 members across 35 states, aldermen don't show up because they believe in rehabilitation. They show up because they understand power. What none of them mention, the Chicago Tribune is already pulling the thread. What they find is this: 21st Century Vote's founding directors include a convicted murderer, a felon convicted of attempted murder, and an ex-convict who police say personally smuggled drugs into prison for Hoover. One founding director is awaiting trial for murder. That is the board of the Political Action Committee that just put 5,000 people in the street. September 1993, 10,000 gangster disciples gather at a picnic in Kankakee. Hoover's pre-recorded voice plays over speakers. The grounds are decorated with murals listing active gang leaders, Hoover's name among them, while somewhere across the city, a school principal is writing the parole board, calling him a visionary. The FBI has been in the room the whole time. October through December 1993, federal agents plant transmitters inside visitor badges. Every in-person meeting captured. The tapes document a man ordering violence against rivals, micromanaging distribution routes, and moving drug money through nonprofit accounts. Not $1 of growth and development funding ever reached the community program. Not one. August 31st, 1995, 40.
Now, did y'all hear that? All the money they was getting for the government, just like these politicians, All the money they was getting from the government, they wasn't using that money as they supposed to. They wasn't using that money for the programs they call themselves setting up. They had other agendas for that money, like drug sales, weapons, and shit like that. Same thing with our government. The federal government give each state a certain amount of money, depending on what programs they have in that state, and it's up to the local government to use that money wisely. You know, so oh man, it's crazy. Let's continue.
It counts: conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, continuing criminal enterprise. 1997, convicted on all 40, 6 additional life terms. At sentencing, Hoover stands and calls it a politically motivated farce, says the U.S. attorney prosecuted him to launch a political career. And the judge sentences him anyway. Prosecutor Ron Safer delivers the number that ends every debate. In the final year before the federal case, there were 930 murders in Chicago. The gangster disciples were responsible for more than half. More than half. Hoover is transferred to ADX Florence, Colorado, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Soundproof concrete cells, 23 hours a day, alone. And when he arrives at ADX Florence, Jeff Fort has already been there for years. ADX Florence, 49 acres of poured concrete and razor wire in Fremont County, Colorado. El Chapo, the Unabomber, the 9/11 conspirators, and somewhere inside that fortress, locked in separate cells, the 2 men who divided Chicago. For years, the streets whispered a rumor. People said that around 2015, the government pulled Fort and Hoover off lockdown. Said they sat together in a cafeteria, holding symposiums, talking about community reform. 2 old rivals finally making peace. Man, I wanted that to be true. But let me keep it real with you. For men like Fort and Hoover, ADX Florence doesn't have a cafeteria. It doesn't do symposiums. It is designed for absolute crushing isolation. Soundproof, 7x12 concrete boxes. Meals pushed through a steel slot, 23 hours a day, alone. The 2 most powerful men to ever run the South Side live in the same facility, but they will never see each other's faces again. Meanwhile, outside those walls, the gangster disciples now operate in over 100 cities across all 50 states. The lines these 2 men drew never disappeared. They just spread. October 11th, 2018, Kanye West sits across from Donald Trump in the Oval Office and makes his case. He calls Hoover a beacon, a living statue, then delivers the line, "Nobody forgets." In an alternate universe, I am him, and I have to go and get him free. December 2021, Kanye and Drake end their years-long feud for one night. 70,000 people at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, 240 nations streaming. All of it for a man in a concrete box in Colorado. May 28th, 2025, Trump commutes Hoover's 6 federal life sentences. The headline screams freedom. The fine print says otherwise. Presidential clemency does not touch state crimes. The chairman's 200-year Illinois murder sentence for 19-year-old William Pookie Young, killed in 1973, remains. His state parole date, October 2062. He would be 111 years old. Jeff Fort, still at ADX Florence, 168 years. Compassionate release denied. He will likely die there. Larry Hoover Jr. said it plainly. They want to give him a legacy of Al Capone when I think his legacy was going to be like a Malcolm X. Two boys from Mississippi, both still inside. The city they divided, still divided. The war never ended. It just ran out of kings.
The division. The division. People, don't that happen in real life? Where you have people come in with different agendas? You know, that shit happens in real life, man. It happens in real life. And it's crazy. It's definitely crazy. But before I get off, y'all, I want to address something. Something today I discovered is very disturbing. I did a live this morning. You know, I finished my live. And I went to Kwame Brown channel. And he was speaking on some good content. So I like real conversation, real talk. So, you know, like I said before, when I used to go on Kwame panels before, I somehow got mixed into this. You know, we used to talk real life shit. I used to be on this panel talking real life shit. So it wasn't nothing new for me to join his panel when he's talking, you know, real shit. But it was disturbing because when I tried to hit the panel, you know, Kwame, you know, not that he didn't want to bring me up, but he didn't want to cause no friction between his brother and stuff. Why? So you're going to make it to where a person can't go nowhere, you know, and all this shit, you know, because you hang with somebody you don't like, you're going to force everybody else not to fuck with them? That's some lame shit. But I respect Kwame because I know he don't want that shit on his channel. And I wasn't bringing that shit to his channel. I was going to speak on the content, what he was talking about, because he was very good at content. You know? But, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. You know, but that just takes the joy out of, you know, going on YouTube, going to different people platforms, enjoying the show, because you got some non-existent hate going on. Because see, the brother basically speaks the same thing I speak when I go live. You know? You know, so it's just crazy to me. And then we got company and shit. So let me move a little bit from the traffic. But yeah, you know, that's crazy, man. You bring that type of division. And that's crazy. Like I said, I respect Kwame because I don't want to bring no fire to him or to his channel. So I just continued to type in the chat. I wasn't along with the content. So hey, it is what it is, but it's just fucked up. I'm still gonna support the brother. I'm still gonna support KB, but it's just fucked up. It got to this point. It just fucked up. It got to this point. But it is what it is. Like I said, this the internet. This the internet. Shit. This shit ain't gonna hurt me or help me. But like I say, I do this for entertainment. I do this to enlighten people who don't know. That's what I do on my platform. Like I said, just because I be somewhere else, that don't make me them. I'm still my own self. Just like how people ride who they want to ride with. Should I ride with who I want to ride with? Don't mean I got something against the other person. But if you got people want to get in their feelings, that's on them. I can't control that. I can't control mofos to get in their feelings. So it is what it is. As I always say, it is what it is. So shout out to the takeover. Shout out to Damn D. Shout out to Armando Black and the Wolf Pack. Well, shout out to KB. Shout out to TJ. I don't have no ill bones about nobody. There's no content creator on this thing. Because for one, I don't know you. And for two, there's plenty of internet room for everybody. I don't take this internet as serious as some other people do. Because what I do on YouTube don't define my life. Don't define on who I am. Either you can accept me or you don't. If you don't accept me, I understand. Peace out. If you do accept me, thank you. I appreciate it. I ain't gonna beg a motherfucker thing from nobody. I ain't gonna beg for attention. None of that. Because in real life, as Armando say, in real motherfucking life, I got my circle. In real motherfucking life, I got my circle. People who I trust. People who I can go to. have to wake up 1, 2 in the morning to think about somebody else or think about another man or whatever. I don't have to do that, and I don't do that. Because the first thing on my mind when I wake up is thanking God that I made another day. That's the first thing on my mind. My mind is not on another person, especially a man. Please, hell no. Hell no. If I'm up that early or whatever, if I'm thinking about anybody, I'm thinking about getting some coochie from a woman. So if I'm not with my woman or whatever, she's not at my crib or whatever, shit. If I'm up and say my prayer, I read a passage. Now, since I go on early, go on live early, you know, before I go on live, go over the content I'm going to go over. And that's it. But that's just fucked up, man. That's fucked up. But it's all good, because I know if I would have got on a panel, you had some of the people in KB chat that do that bullshit, want to drop it because they don't like you or the person who they support don't like you. So, and I think KB knew that. And I think KB knew that. But like I said, it's all good. It's all good in the hood. But it just fucked up. It came to that. That's the only thing I'm tripping on. I ain't tripping on KB not letting me on the panel. I'm tripping on how shit came to this. Why did it come to this? Because what I'm told, most of everybody on this side got along. You might have the little roasting amongst each other, but it wasn't as chaotic as it is now. Why is that? Because to me, you can't blame the content creator. Because the content creator gonna put out on what he think his audience like. If you got the type of audience that like buffoonery all the time, you're gonna do buffoonery. If you got a page where you talk serious talk, you're gonna have more people who like to have conversation and learn on your channel. If you're a person that like to, mix it up, serious talk. So it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. It's all about who you like, see. But it's like that in real life, like I said, y'all. It's all about who we like. Oh, yeah, I forgot to give a shout out to Grandma Calling. Grandma Calling. Let me give a shout out to Nacho and Rodney. Give a shout out to them brothers too. You know, so yeah. But yeah, guys, I hope y'all didn't. I just had to bring a part two. Then I wanted to say that a little bit at the end because I felt that was kind of fucked up, you know, but I understood where Kwame was coming from. So it's no quarrel towards him. It's just fucked up how other people made things to make it like that. If a person come with intelligent conversation or who can conversate, then because the other person don't like them, you know, a person shouldn't be, I ain't gonna say Kwame was scared, but relentless of letting them up on the panel. Because the same shit Kwame talk about, I talk about. I talk about real life shit. But I guess people don't like me because I'd be over there on the takeover. So when I would come to your channel, I didn't see anybody get mad when I came to their channel. I just showed you all this shit is a bunch of lame shit. It's lame. So like I said, I can't fault it because everybody like a different type of entertainment. Everybody got different types of standards, man. You know, like, you know, you can't control other people. All you can do is control yourself. Because you worry about how you control or change other people, you'll worry yourself gray. Because you'll never be able to change them. You know, so it's crazy. It is crazy, man. It's crazy work. Crazy work. Yeah, like I said, I don't know who the hell that typed on my community wall. They had behind a dummy account. See, shit like that. Childish shit. Childish. If you don't like a person or you don't like what they talk about, go somewhere else. Don't come over to the other person's channel and just bring that bullshit. That's stupid, man. Is that your job every day? Do you get paid to do what you're doing? You just doing it to please them, huh? Or to please her. That's what you're doing. Man, shit's wild, man. Shit is wild to me, man. But like I say, I laugh at it, man. I just shake my head. Boy, these people, man. Oh, boy. YouTube. Wherefore art thou, YouTube? Man, well, let me get off this thing, y'all. I've been on here, got People expecting a house, got families walking up all down through the house and shit. You know, I can't get no peace and quiet. But it's the weekend, baby. It's the weekend, man. That's how it be. Everybody home. You know, so it's the weekend. What's up, Rocky? No, it's the weekend, baby. Yeah, well, let me get out this YouTube, y'all. Let me see what's happening with the family. See everybody else going on live. You know, I know my man said he had a track meet to go to. He's gonna be with the family. So I don't think you know, he gonna go on live with the family with his kids, and he said he's gonna have other kids traveling with him in the car. So if they go live today, I don't know what time that'll be. That'll probably be later on when they go live. But I'm just gonna see it. Until then, if they don't come on live, it'll be cool. I'll check them out Monday. Well, I'll check them out tomorrow. But, you know, on Sundays, I have my day. That's the other family day. You know, we go worship, you know, do all that stuff on Sunday. So sometimes I'll be having time. You know, it depends on how long they be on this Sunday. Because this Sunday is not going to be a long day. So it depends on when they start and how long they be on. I'll check them out tomorrow if they don't come on today. You know, so it'll be all good. So, lesson for the day, people. Some people just need to get a life. Stop being so fucking jealous of other people, especially people you don't know. Stop being fucking jealous. You look bad. You look bad when you're jealous of another person because it stands out. Never knock a man on what he do or how he do it or whatever. If a man is successful, congratulate him. Don't knock him. When you do that, that's when you find you don't get no blessings. When you try to block other people's blessings, you don't receive no blessings. You know, you do not receive no blessings when you block other people's blessings. And that's for sure. So let me get off this, y'all. I'm out of here for real. You know, get this day started. It's supposed to be warming up. Excuse me, warming up. I gotta get my shit out the cleaners. Get my suit and shit out the cleaners, you know. Yeah, I do wear a suit. Grown man suit. That's a grown man shit. That's man shit. If you don't own the suit or two, every man should own a suit or two. Every man, every grown man should own a suit or own two suits. That should be a must. Yep. So, all right, people. I'm out of here. Have a good day.
Um,